Hello, welcome. Looks like we lost Elizabeth. Anyways, welcome. We are having some technical difficulties, of course, being our first podcast for Elizabeth and I.
Hi.
There you are. Okay, good. Welcome back. So, anyways, welcome. We will get my camera situation figured out here eventually, but I apologize for that. So you get to see Elizabeth. So, anyways, welcome. Elizabeth, how are you?
I am good. Happy Monday. Hope everyone is having a great Monday morning. Everything is going your way. No drama. I absolutely hope that for everybody on a Monday morning.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. So, especially Monday mornings with the family business. That's always really fun. So, anyways, just to give you a bit of history about Elizabeth and I, we own Salterra. Salterra is our main branded website. We have a bunch of different stuff underneath that brand. Anyways, about 14 years old, and I started it basically out of necessity. We had lost our real estate flipping business, obviously when the crash happened, and I had just come off a shoulder surgery. I tore my rotator cuff and kind of needed some income. So I went back and asked my church if I could do their website. I was an old software developer. I've been doing it since 1990. So I was an old Dreamweaver, HTML, CSS guy. So still love that. Just don't do it very often. Anyway, so I built the church a website and got a couple more websites through the church and other people there. And found out pretty quick I needed to go to WordPress in order to compete because I was taking, 6 weeks, 8 weeks to do a coded website, and they were running, about $5,000. So
okay,
the competition.
Like, to be honest, like you hesitated to go to WordPress.
For a year. Yeah. I actually had a developer that was doing stuff in WordPress. I just refused to learn it. But anyway, so yeah, it's and then once I started learning WordPress, I found out real quick I wasn't very good at design. So I was trying to do logos. I was trying to do everything, and that's when I asked Elizabeth
to come on board to help.
Yeah, sure, it was definitely painful in the beginning, but so I convinced her to come back with me on this is actually our third business together, our third self-employment. So yeah, she came back, and I don't know, when did we bring on Skylar? Was our first. We brought Skylar on 8 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
So, anyways, yeah. So a little bit about how we got started. Definitely, we weren't doing SEO at all. It was all strictly web design and web development. We were doing some custom portals for pharmacies. We were HIPAA certified to be able to do some small pharmacy type websites for small rural communities. That was always a lot of fun. And then it just kind of grew from there. So it's definitely been
it grew. There was a learning curve. I think that you kind of gloss over and make it sound a little happier and smoother than it probably was at that point. But yeah, there was definitely a learning curve in the beginning. It was absolutely just me and you for quite a while. I mean, we legitimately had our desks in our bedroom facing each other. At one point we had an office with our desks facing each other. So you and I worked very closely together all day, every day. Marriage, kids, business. It was a lot in the beginning. I mean, I'm not saying it was bad by any means. Like, we work really well together. We have to in order to stay married this long and work together. Like, I know we're kind of a unicorn, but yeah, in the beginning, it was a lot. It was a lot of learning curves, a lot of, what about this software? What about that software? What does this do? How do I do this? Where do I find how do I do this kind of thing? So.
Yeah, because there wasn't, Facebook back then, obviously. There was some stuff on YouTube. Especially when we started getting into the WordPress stuff and choosing a theme. I think that was probably the most painful thing that I think we went through. We probably went through 10 different themes before we settled on Avada. But yeah, we still have some websites out there that are just like, built with, just some horrendous. Of course, we started with free themes. We had to do the free thing for a little while. And of course, that ended up biting us in the butt. So,
well, then you don't know what you don't know. So you try things and, oh, here, let me edit the source code, and not realizing the very next update, all your shit's wiped out. So we did try a lot of new themes in the beginning because of the fact that we thought we needed to have a greater understanding and knowledge base of all of the other stuff that was out there. But I quickly found that the other themes did not do what I needed it to do from a visual graphic standpoint. And every time I would try to do a new theme, of course, you have the steep learning curve. Like, how do I find this? Where do I find this? The frustration. And I think at one point I went to you and I'm like, I can build this in a fraction of the time in Avada and not have to struggle. And so that's why we kind of settled on the one theme, because granted, I know everyone's going to give me shit for it and everybody loves all of their super screaming fast ones, but the capabilities of Avada are, I would say, unsurpassed, because I could literally take and mimic anything graphically. Then, you guys like hard coding, and I know there's different debates on, okay, is that really a good representation of a website? And you learn as you go, but at the very least, if I'm the only one building and I can do it faster myself, then why not, right? I don't know. Y'all are
that's
about it.
And that's definitely the thing. I mean, and we've not only selected the theme we use, but we also have the same plugins, and kind of talk about the advantages on the build side when your team knows that everything's going to be the same, at least from the base point.
Well, we do run into that now. If you take on a client of a site that my team hasn't built, then your team is looking at it like, okay, it's going to take me a little bit longer because I don't know where this is and I don't know where that is. And, whereas with ours, just because my team will build the way you like it, it makes your job easier. Like, that's the point, right?
I mean, yeah, for sure. And it's also efficiencies. I mean, when you have, when you're building, websites in multiple different, you can even have the same theme, but you're adjusting that theme based on whatever that client wants, and either you're taking it away, you're taking stuff away from that theme, kind of like Elementor does. But I think the biggest thing is, as far as an efficiency thing, is we know that this is the theme, these are the standard plugins. If any other plugin needs to be used, it's always done on our tests, on our test sites, to make sure there's no conflicts with our regular plugins, because we've ran into that too. And just keeping things updated as far as security and testing stuff. That's one thing I love about you and your team, is that you guys are constantly updating that stuff. So what we used to do for backup and security a couple of years ago, you guys have updated that because you're constantly finding new stuff, better stuff, more secure ways of doing things. And
well, we have to. I mean, I reach out to the people that I know that are the best in the industry as far as security, because like I have that responsibility to my clients, like I can't have a crappy website. I can't have it getting hacked. It takes time away from our new projects. And it's not fair to the client if my team doesn't know how to build right or how to secure a site. Like, granted, nothing is impenetrable, but I do reach out to industry professionals that I know their shit. And so that's why I'm like, okay, like I need a better option. I need something more secure. I need, how do I update this? We've got redundancy servers for backup so that it's offsite. So that anything does happen, like, I can't guarantee 100% uptime, but our uptime is really high. I mean, 99.9. I rarely have sites go down. But I ran into an issue not too long ago where a client was being very helpful and making some edits themselves. and they crashed the site. And so, yeah, I've got to pull a backup. I've got to, reinstall it and hopefully go back far enough from, when they were helping to edit.
Yeah, helping being the magic word.
Yeah. So it's all good,
Yeah, and like I said, the web design side has always been, our core product. The SEO side, we got brought into it, just kind of as a favor to one of our charities, just to kind of see what the money was being spent on. Didn't really know much about optimization back then. And then come to find out a few years later, the way you used to have to build in Dreamweaver, you were kind of doing some of the optimizing stuff that we teach today. But I think the biggest thing is that, we now had a product that is just a floating target all the time. And that's the SEO. The whole search engine optimization is always a floating target. It's always, test. It works now. It didn't work. It didn't work a year ago. Updates every couple months. I mean, it totally is the moving target of our business. And so that's why we started looking at it more of a granular thing of saying, okay, yes, SEO is important, but what else is important about SEO or about traffic or about conversions? And I think that's where you and I started reaching back going, okay, so we're definitely going to kind of have two divisions here. We're going to have the web design branding, helping a business right out of the box, so to speak, side, which is your side. And then we're going to have, it went from SEO to marketing in general. I mean, we figured out a long time ago that you couldn't just do SEO. You had to get into pay-per-click. You had to get into, funnel marketing and email marketing and all the stuff that just brings in different leads from different directions. And then, just start building a team around that side. So I think next week, you and I talked about this morning, we're going to next Monday, we're going to introduce everybody to Team Samuels, which will bring
Team Salterra.
Team Samuels, Team Salterra.
Team Salterra.
And kind of get their take on the family side of the business. And it's, I look at the family business differently than obviously Elisabeth does. I'm more of the authority type person all the time, whether it's father or business. And I don't lean one direction or another, but during the working hours, it's definitely one hat fits all. And, they definitely will go to Elisabeth or mom way more often than they come to me with their drama. But what do you think the dynamics are of what makes this work with our family?
That's a great question. And I'm not prepared, so I need a second here. What makes it work? Okay. I think first and foremost, you and I are a team. And you and I, no matter how crazy it gets or how stressful it gets or what is popping up in our personal life or our business life, we look at this business as our partnership. And, we've had other partnerships in the past with other businesses, and I don't think people take them as seriously as it should be taken, because a business partnership even is still kind of a marriage. Like, you're trying to find the common middle ground that the two of you are, against everything else, right? Like, if there's a problem or an issue, it's not the problem or the issue. It's us against the problem. And I think that, even when it gets crazy, it gets stressful. And, we've had our little blowouts. I'm not going to say that it's perfect and everything is peaches and roses over at Team Salterra. I can tell you it's not. But when we do have those craziness and those issues, we look at how can we tackle this together? How can we solve the problem? Not me blaming you, you blaming me. It's the kid's fault. It's none of that. It's like, okay, well, this is the problem. This is the issue. What kind of a solution can we have for that? And I think that foundational approach definitely helps. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but It gives us a clear direction that it's, us against the issue and us as a team. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and COVID definitely brought that out. COVID was a test, I mean, for everybody, obviously. But a couple things happened in COVID for our company is obviously on the marketing side, we lost, a tremendous amount of clients, like
Mhm.
virtually overnight. And the personal thing from me, and I know Elizabeth's the same way, is, we're responsible for 3 households that we're related to. So, and that was a step back. I mean, so we had to bring the kids in, start talking about strategy. Elizabeth and I, twice a year minimum, we take a hotel weekend, we get away, and it's nothing but a business weekend. We look at our goals, we look at our monthly expenditures, we look and see what we're paying, what we bought that we're not using anymore. And we started including the kids in that. So, and it was one of those things that, all right, we're kind of needed to hit the reset button on the marketing side. Fortunately, Elizabeth's web design side took off like a rocket. So we did have, some cushion there. But I think that's when I realized most, the dynamic of having a family business, because we could, bring in people that weren't involved with it day by day by day, even though, they're related and all this other stuff. But
Well, and I think because it's our kids, they see how much we work. They see how hard we work. They see the ups and the downs, and they see our commitment to it. I mean, I'm hoping so, right? Like, that there's a sense of loyalty and trust that we have with them, and hopefully that they have with us. That you don't always get that same loyalty and trust with outside employees. And I'm not saying it's not possible, it's just a different balance. Whereas, we've always represented that our family is a team. Even, when the kids were little and it didn't have anything to do with business, you know, different things, different circumstances happened. And, we back each other. We are all invested in each other. And like, I know it's crazy. We're kind of a little more invested in each other's lives than a lot of families are, but that's what makes us work. And that's what's important to us. We put a lot of energy, effort, love into our family.
mhm.
And I hope that they appreciate that. I hope that they recognize that, now that the
Well,
kids are older, I think that they see it, they see other families as different. Ours is weird in our own way, but, we're involved.
yeah, and they still come over every Sunday for dinner. So that's
Well,
always
because I provide free food.
and it's but it is interesting, because we do go to a lot of conferences, we speak at a lot of conferences. Some of them we take the kids to, for their own specific, depending on where they're working in their dynamic. And it's, I think, and then we take family vacations too, but that always end up talking business, of course.
We
So
always talk business.
yeah, I mean, me and the boys golf every week. That's kind of our SEO meeting. And we talk about SEO a lot during that week. Skylar rides with me typically, and Skylar runs my link network, and among other things. And so we're doing a lot of testing right now with links and link building. So, and then with Brandon over on the map side, we're doing the same thing there. We're doing some testing on CTR. We're doing some testing on, just different variables that we can kind of move the needle. Not necessarily quicker, but more stability on the map side. So maps are, I don't know, people ask me all the time. I don't like maps, mainly just because it is the biggest moving target of everything, because you can lose your map and not because you didn't do anything. So, but I do think that the dynamic between the family thing is just, at least for me, it just brings it all back home again. And it's just, it's one of the things I would obviously never change. And two, it makes it a lot easier to bounce stuff off of. We're doing a lot of, I'm not going to call a lot of big changes, but we have a lot of things, a lot of moving parts right now in Salterra. And it's nice to bounce some stuff off, your family and the kids and people that know what you do. Most people's families don't even really know what they do. They don't know what
Yeah.
SEO is. They don't, it's a foreign object to them. So their family barbecues are kind of lonely, where ours aren't.
Well, you and I have had such a unique relationship the whole time we've been together, because I think the only time we worked apart was within the first like 4 months that we were together, where we had separate jobs, separate, things. And, you come home from work and it's like, oh, how was your day? It's like you couldn't really get into a deep conversation because you didn't understand all the ins and outs of mortgages. I didn't understand all the ins and outs of your IT support. And so it was like very surface level. Whereas, with this business and other businesses that we've had, it's like our conversations are a lot deeper because we look at more long-term goals. We look at, okay, well, yeah, we're looking at the business this way, but let's dig down deep into those layers underneath. And like, we can bounce each other ideas off of each other and, get another perspective. But again, like we do have some pretty deep conversations.
Yeah, 100%. But like I said, it's we have our Monday morning meetings every Monday. Those are just to get everybody on the same page, on the same thing. That we do use teamwork as our kind of our project management system.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of helps out a lot too. So yeah, I mean, like I said, we still have to treat this thing as a normal business with normal employees doing normal things, but realize also that if I need to ask Skylar or Brandon something that's typically not part of what they would be involved in, just to get their opinion, it's pretty cool to have that opportunity. So,
right.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. So, okay, so I know we had a couple questions come in. Let's get to those before we kind of devalue our time here, or not devalue, but lose time. I apologize for my camera, everybody. I don't like sitting here looking at a white circle. I'll get that figured out. If anybody has any ideas if anybody has any idea how to get my camera connected to StreamYard, let me know. It works everywhere else, just not with StreamYard.
Oh, you just probably have to shut it off and turn it back on again. And you didn't find out until the last minute, so it's all good.
What does support say? Did you restart your computer?
Yeah, right. Turn it off, turn it on again. As soon as we get off of the webinar, I'm sure it's going to work perfectly, so don't stress.
Yeah, just the way it always is. All right, cool. What kind of questions did people submit?
So most of the questions that I have, I'm going to be perfectly honest, it's all schema.
Well, that kind of goes in conjunction with the announcement today, but go ahead. So ask away.
It does.
And if you guys have questions out there, put your questions in, either about just basically whatever. If we can answer it, we'll answer it. If we can't, we won't. So that's pretty much the bottom line. So, and like our stuff, like us, follow us, do all that kind of gibberish.
Get involved. We'll be showing up here quite a bit, and so
every
if there's a certain topic or something y'all are interested in, I'm open. Okay, so here is a question about a tool. Do you use tools like Page Optimizer Pro? And if you do you add schema before or after you tune a page?
Good question. We don't use tools that often, mainly just because we've really gotten really good at on page. I've used Pop for years, and so Pop helped me get better at on page. And so we use Cora a lot, I think the most now, and it's only for pages that are being stubborn. And one of the reasons that we don't use tools a lot is because they're not real good at reading our schema. They read some schema, but they're not real good at reading, the type of schema that we do. So typically we'll tune a page before our schema, but we'll also, in consideration, if it's saying add 1,000 words, we add those 1,000 words to schema. We don't necessarily add them to the page, especially if the page already has a couple thousand. So there's ways you can add stuff through, but it's still not going to change your Pop score or your Cora score, because typically they're not picking up those 1,000 words that you put in schema. So, yeah, I think if you get really good, and which is one of my advices I tell people, especially around SEO, get really, really good at something, and use whatever tools, whatever training, whatever mechanisms you need to become the master at that part, and then just like I said, you become better and better and better. So I do support tools. I think tools are great. I think Pop's great. Kyle's one of my dear friends. I haven't done too much with Surfer. I was doing some Surfer back before they started adding a whole bunch of stuff. So, but obviously anything that Matt and Michael are involved in is going to be fun. And then of course Ted and Cora. I've been a huge Cora fan from way back in the beginning when I was paying Clint Butler to read the reports for me. So, so yeah, that's kind of my take on tools. But we teach on page. We have an on page class, and we teach in that class that if you do on page successfully and then put it in the tool, it makes fine tuning very, very easy.
Well, and in your course, you list what tools you actually use, and you're not necessarily tied into any one tool or any one developer specifically. You go by what works for what you're trying to accomplish. So it's not like there's too much of a bias.
Yeah, for sure. And it's and the simplicity of it. I mean, Cora is a tough program to learn. There's no secret to that. But it also gets more data points than anything. So and you take Lee's course, which helps you dissect a Cora report to where it really gets down to the nuts and bolts of what you need to be optimizing.
Well,
and then it just makes you better.
I can definitely speak to how incredibly helpful Ted was with Cora, because I did do a training with him. And I mean, I don't know a lot about software developers out there in the universe, but he took the time and attention to make sure that I understood his product. And he personally did a training with me. I know I've been able to reach out to Lee and Honey on different instances, and they have been like super helpful. I can't say that for everybody that has a tool out there or has a program, but specifically those people have been outstanding as far as making sure like I understand it, because I don't know as much technical stuff as you do, so you can probably figure stuff out. But if somebody is new and starting out, it helps to find a tool or software that has great support, and those are two I can speak to personally.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Good question.
All right. You want another schema question? Because that seems to be the flavor of the day. Okay, here's one. How do you do schema for e-commerce? And I'm going to kind of tack on to that because I do build e-commerce sites with WooCommerce. That's my preferred software. Do you go in and schema each individual product, or do you just do an overall sampling? How do you do that?
There's a couple different ways. Obviously, it depends on the size. Most large e-com or even medium to small medium e-com sites, are still the 80-20 rule. So 80% of their traffic is coming from 20% of their products. And so we look at that stuff. We especially the large e-com sites, you have to look at it strategically. So the first and foremost thing is the brand schema. The brand schema is, in my opinion, the most important part of e-com. Now, if it's one brand with many products, that's fine. But if it's multiple brands with multiple products, then the brand schema is going to be one of your most important things you want to spend the most time on. Because the brand schema, you can do all brands. Now if one brand has 200 products, but only 20 of those products are bringing in any income, then we would typically do the schema on those 20 products. And then obviously as you grow, or as you get the first swath done, or phase one, whichever one of way you build this out, then you can go in and you can start doing the other ones. So let's say, for instance, when you start looking at the products that you want, not only do you have your best sellers, but maybe you have products that you want to push more because they pay a higher commission or they are a higher ticket item. If you're going to make $2 on a product compared to $200 on the product, you probably want to spend more time on the $200 product. So again, ecom, like any on-page schema project has to have a project spreadsheet. You have to really dissect what you're getting ready to do so you don't waste time. One of the first things people learn about me is I don't waste a lot of time. I'm very efficient. I'll spend more time on the setup than I ever will the implementation, because then I find out where I can solve mistakes before they happen. And in the world of schema, it's not like you made a mistake and will do something detrimental unless you put that wrong schema on the wrong product. But wasting time, spending time on a whole bunch of products that really aren't bringing you a lot of not only income but value, then I've seen that happen a lot, especially on the e-com side. But it is very, very, very important, especially in e-com, to map out your plan, and map that out starting with the brands. It's all about the brands. So if you're a affiliate site, like I have many affiliate sites, so my brand schema is like the first thing, especially when I find a new product I want to go after. That'll be the first schema we do, is that brand, and then we'll do the product schema underneath the brand. So,
right. And, I've heard you mention this several times, and I just kind of want to reiterate the fact a lot of people look at schema as like the golden ticket. If I just put schema on my site, then everything's going to be, perfect, beautiful, angels will sing, that kind of thing. And reiterate, please, like how important it is to have your foundational stuff on your site done first.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that you have to look at. Schema is one of those things. It's like with link building, it's the same way. So if you buy a really good link, if you go after and you get a really good guest post approval, or you use something you went out and you really spent time, money, and effort on to point to your website, that can have a detrimental effect if your website isn't technically ready for it. And technically ready for it means that you've checked off all the boxes that you would do for a typical on-page project. So if you're sending a powerful link to an inside page and you have no other links built in your entire website, that's kind of a question mark. Okay, so or you take this powerful link and you send it to a page that has technically unsound variables, a bad title, a bad description, 17 H1s, just all the stuff, 250, 300 words on that page. You can actually see a drop when that link hits or whatever, or when that schema hits, because now all you've done is just shown a flashlight on your shitty website or your shitty web page. So you have to be very careful when you start paying for links, when you start adding advanced schema, when you start doing the secondary stuff, which that's all it is, secondary. You have to make sure that the primary is set. You have to make sure that your page that you're getting ready to optimize is optimized properly and is even better optimized than every single competitor. And now you add schema. Now you add a good backlink. Now you start to see results coming from what the time, energy, money, and effort you put into this, because you've got all the boxes checked. So many times I do a lot of schema for white label, and I turn away probably at least 60% of them because their website's not ready. And I've run into it too many times. We basically build a second website in schema. And so by doing that, we're going to shine a flashlight on problems. And so if your problems aren't technically fixed, you can have a negative effect from a good backlink or advanced schema or a killer press release plan. All this other stuff that we teach off page, can, again, shine that flashlight on that one problem that you have, or multiple problems. It's usually multiple. I got one right now I'm doing an audit on. The guy could not figure out for the life of him what the problem is. Well, his page load speed's 11 seconds. I'm not a speed guy. I'm a 3-second, you're good. That's it. But when you start looking at 11 seconds, 17 seconds, 19 seconds, you got a problem, and you've got to fix that problem before you go out and say, hey, I want all this stuff to come to me. Otherwise it's just going to have a negative effect.
Okay, so that's a great segue because I have recently run into something where we did a rebuild and we were given very specific instructions that it needed to match something. So we did that. So that included extra CSS. It included some extra JavaScript. So for the functionality, we dropped it down to 5 seconds. But what other suggestions do you have to speed up a site? If I looked at from my side, I've optimized the theme to shut off anything that I don't need. I don't have, crazy sliders and shit like that. And, I've pared it down as much as I can. What are some suggestions that you have for speed?
I mean, the biggest thing that I found with speed, which is a lot of things, is typically images and video. So, images, most people don't resize and optimize images as they build. I know you guys do. But I know the specific site too. So I know some of those images are big. So when you have a 5 megabyte image on your front page as your hero image, your site's going to be slow. That's
No,
bottom
but like
line.
we did go
So,
through and re-optimize images. We did smush them. We did turn off any extra, minify any JavaScript, minify any CSS. So did all of the things, probably a little bit more than most basic web designers will do. So is it at that point like, we need to dig deeper, do a more in-depth evaluation? Or what are some of your suggestions?
I mean, like I said, it could be a couple different things. So, number of images. You and I have both seen sites that have 10,000 images,
Yeah,
and they have 12 of each. Well, most people don't realize when you load one image into a WordPress site, it makes 12. So if you
yeah,
have 12 images, you just made 144 images. So,
correct.
so all those type of things is a challenge. And then you got to see what you're using to check your speed with. Core Web Vitals from Google is not a great tool to check speed with. GT metrics or some other ones. I'm sure Cato knows a good one. Clint uses a good one. Those are the ones that you want to find out what's your first load to paint. It could be a hosting issue. A lot of stuff that we
Great
see on the
question.
speed side is hosting. And so if you've got a crappy host, you're going to have crappy speed. So
Well,
it could be, it can be a couple different variables.
and it's not necessarily a crappy host. It could be a particular site maybe needs a CDN and maybe it needs its own individual server, So
Especially
yeah,
on the e-com side. Yeah, if you're
yeah,
e-com and you should probably look at your own VPS or something instead of being on a shared box.
right.
And earlier rather than later, it's harder to move a larger functioning website than it is a smaller getting started website.
Right. So we did have another question. Brian Cotto wants to know what are some of your favorite plugins when building sites? That would probably be me since I build them. I absolutely love. I do WP Rocket. I do a lot of the basic ones. I hide the login. I think that's kind of important, especially with security. There's a couple new security plugins. I know you have recommended WP Immunity. I'm like seriously looking at that one right now to integrate across the board with all of my sites because I definitely want to make sure that, security is nailed down. We have developers licensed with Gravity Forms. I really like Gravity Forms. I think that it has a lot of flexibility. I love the fact that they're, kept in the back end. They don't get deleted unless they're manually deleted. I think that's important, especially for contact forms. People email has been really crazy recently, and you have to have, like all of this security. You have to have your DKIM, your DMARC, and all of these things. And so sometimes forms don't get through. And for a business that is relying on clients, I think it's important to make sure that you don't lose those forms in the back end. So having that database in the back end, I think is super important. I'm definitely open to suggestions from other people as to, certain plugins. We're a big fan of Header Footer Code Manager. We use it on the web development side because I've got Marker to have my clients do their edits as far as when we build a site. So, things like that I think are important. But again, my core theme has most everything itself. I try not to do a lot of extra plugins because I don't want the bloat and I also don't want any conflicts. So I hope that kind of answered your question. Terry, do you have anything to add about plugins?
Redirection plugin goes on every single site.
Yes.
And then we use SEO Press Pro. We turn all the schema off of any plugin. Those are probably two of my favorites. And then, Gravity Forms is, one of those things that's we do like it, and it does help the client to know that we're saving every single form.
Yeah.
Because emails and forms and stuff, if your clients aren't testing them monthly, they need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, test your forms as a client, as a consumer. Make sure that they're working. Make sure you're getting them. 100%. It doesn't bother me, and it doesn't hurt if I see a test go through. Like, I support it.
Yep, definitely. Especially if it's connected to something third party. If it's going through Zapier or going through Make or connecting to Infusionsoft or whatever, or Keep now, I guess. But yeah, so those connections break all the freaking time, and it's usually because they did some sort of update and it broke whatever connection was there.
Yeah.
Always. Okay, cool. Another question?
Is there a too deep when it comes to schema? Can you overdo it?
I think I'm gonna say yes and no. No, as far as what the search engines can do. Okay, so but yes, as far as getting into the realm of time wasting. Okay, so especially when you start getting into, we've been teaching entities in schema for years. I think going on 5 years now. And now it's a great thing. Everybody's talking about it and writing content around it and all that stuff. Awesome. But entities is that one area that you can go too deep into as far as time wasting. So if you're looking at an entity for web design, for instance, you can find entities around PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, whatever payment processor systems you can use to pay for web design. And yeah, sure, it's an entity. I'm not going to argue with that. It would probably go in a abouts or mention area of a schema, but do I really want to waste time putting that in there? I don't think I'm going to get a client because I have PayPal or Visa in my schema. So Simon Cornelius talks a lot about this. Simon and I and Clint and a bunch of us have always done a lot of schema together. But I think you can definitely, I'm not going to say go overboard as far as you're going to have a negative effect, but I'm going to say go overboard as far as efficiency and time wasting and, move on to the next thing. So you could spend hours and just find all kinds of crap. You can keep going. I used to teach people to go into the first 5 pages when doing research. And now we're down to even 3 and 4, maybe 5, but we've gone all the way as far as 10. And it really gets to be a time waster, So that's the biggest thing as far as too deep. I have websites that I have my schema only website. I've got 4,500 words of content in that schema. So as far as number of words you can put in description or de-ambiguous description, we haven't found the bottom of that. It's not like we're still testing it, but I have a lot of words in that schema on purpose to see, will it help me rank? And it did, but we don't do that on every single website. Let's see. Brian Cato, do you do a lot of conditional formatting? Oh yeah, definitely. So I'll even answer this one. We do a lot of, like everybody, CAPTCHA. We've been fighting CAPTCHA for years. All of us have. Well, I don't even remember where I saw this. It was a year before COVID. So my life is pre-COVID, after COVID. But we saw a guy ask a question at the bottom of a Gravity form. So that's what we started doing. A panda is black and ? And if you put the word white in, it pops up the submit button. It's one of the coolest anti-spam measures that we have found. And we just got a new health insurance company, and he was getting 200 spams a day, and we did this to him. The second day we got him, his spams are now like 15. So it's really a good thing. So I'm a huge believer in conditional logic. We've built some super elaborate forms. We've built some customization forms, some forms you can build something through answering questions, all through conditional formatting.
Well, you had that project for the oil and gas industry to build a configurator, and it used a ton of conditional logic. So yeah, and I can follow along with that. And I've done, stuff with there. When you're talking about multi-step forms or all-in-one, I find I do more all-in-one because every time I've done a multi-step form, like somebody gets frustrated, they bail because they're like, okay, well, like how much more information do you need? Our onboarding is through Gravity Forms. I love it. I'm looking at switching, but I do have a hard time because I love Gravity Forms. So I would say most of the time, all-in-one form, multi-step forms, I get some kickback from the end user. So that's why I don't do it as much. I think it's fun, but
yeah, we actually at one time we actually had a website that we sold completed Gravity Forms.
Yeah.
Because we've done forms for dentists and all medical form that you would sign in the medical office or in Gravity. So we've got some pretty elaborate forms. So
yeah.
Stuff you couldn't have definitely done with contact forms. So. Good question, Mr. Pete. All right. Anything else? We got probably time for one more question.
Maybe. Oh, well. Okay, so here's a question about schema fields. Apparently, schema is the topic of the day. What fields do you feel are not necessary, or should they fill out every possible field? Or do you have like a case study that could potentially go back and forth? Like, I mean, I know there's a lot of @ fields for schema. I don't know what they all are.
I think the biggest thing is, this kind of ties into our announcement today, but I think the biggest thing with schema and looking at doing stuff as far as, schema is a per page thing. With that being said, there's some schemas that I think are a complete freaking waste of time. That would be your WP header, your WP sidebar, your WP footer, your WP navigation. Most of the stuff that rank math's the biggest one that does this. And they do that for a couple different reasons. So at least on the testing side, we know the navigation, the main navigation, and the links within that to those pages really don't hold that much water with Google as a factor of any sort. It will help you get a new page noticed, whatever. There's some tricks you can get in there as far as indexing and stuff. But I think the reason why they want a WP header or WP navigation or WP sidebar or whatever is because they're trying to get more of that link stuff in there to Google. And I've always said you can do that with regular schema or regular advanced schema. You can put all that stuff in there. So you don't need the extra, navigation and footer and header and all that stuff, in my opinion. And then it depends on when you get into different page schemas. So you can get, you really don't want to have any schema at all on your privacy pages, your terms of service pages, your thank you pages, your password protected areas. One of the reasons we use header footer code managers is we can dictate not only where we want that schema, but where we don't want that schema. So, but as far as the fields and the different things you can do with that, I teach that, and it's all through testing. We've tested almost everything, and we're still testing. We talked about a new test this morning. So we're still testing about which different fields, because according to schema.org, there's a whole myriad of stuff you can put in schema, and that's our Bible on the schema side. So I've lived in schema.org. That's how I started doing schema almost 6 years ago now. I lived in there. I learned not only what we could add, but what we could add to the ad. Can you add a URL field for a text field, stuff like that? So But anyways, that kind of goes to our big announcement today. So let me see. Elizabeth has talked me into something.
It was not hard.
Well, whatever. So share. Can you see that? Yep, that's true. So I'm actually going to do a schema course. I've been fighting this for years, and the reason why I fight courses is because I like to teach. I like to teach people live. I like to teach people with questions as they come up. I like doing interviews and stuff like that about all the different things that we can talk about when it comes to on page and schema and SEO type stuff. Um, Um, bear
Okay,
with me.
so yeah, it wasn't hard to talk you into doing the course for a couple of reasons. Again, yes, you love teaching. You give more than anyone else I know. You are very selfless when it comes to sharing your knowledge. And I just thought that it would be important for people to have a course where they didn't have to be a certain place at a certain time and be in front of the computer and do on the Zoom. They could do it at their own pace. You're going to have all of the lessons pre-recorded so that they can stop, replay as many times as they need to. If life or business happens, they can take a break for, a couple of days, get back to it, that kind of thing. So I just think it's like a really good format for you sharing your knowledge.
Well, and I think it's going to be different than other ones, obviously. So there's, like I said, I've been teaching schema and on page for years. I actually have at the same SEO university. I have an on page class that's starting here in a couple weeks. But the schema portion of it, the reason why that I agreed and wanted to do this now and I'm excited about doing this is because I think my main reason I like teaching people is to think about a different way of doing things. So, there's all kinds of conversations about there to schema work. Is it a ranking factor? All this stuff. Well, not only, yes, it works. I'm not going to say it's a ranking factor, but it tells the search engines more about that specific page. So you rank for more keywords. So I'm not going to say that it's going to take your Dallas plumber from 5 to 1 because you have Dallas plumber on that page, but you're probably going to get a hell of a lot of keywords around Dallas plumber once you add the schema in properly. Another thing, the only reason I kind of agreed to this is because we're going to have a private Facebook group. And this will be not a Facebook group that goes away in any time soon or whatever. This is a private Facebook group to me. So, and to everybody else. One thing about schema, one reason I love talking about schema with Brian and Clint and, Jesper and some of these people out there that are starting to do this schema like I do is what else is out there that we can do with this? Can we inject it into certain items and things and utilize it to where other people aren't using it? The cool thing about the way I teach schema and the schema that I teach is that 99% of the people don't do it. So one of the things that all of us teach people, especially through presentations or conferences or whatever, is you've got to be different. You can't keep doing the same exact thing as everybody else and wonder why you're not moving your clients' numbers. Schema does this. Schema will do this stuff once you implement it the way that I teach, and then obviously make sure that you're on page. We're not going to cover a lot of on page in this course, but I can tell you right now that you will learn the thought process of what makes schema work. And it's the thought process that makes you better or different than your competitors. This is also going to be good for a small business owner that wants to add it to their own site, or maybe they have their son, daughter, brother, sister, whatever that does their website for them. So this is not going to be so technical that you're not going to be able to do this. And the video lessons are going to be very specific. You're going to be able to kind of mosey around if you just want to focus and learn about local business schema, then you can just go to that module. So this thing's going to be set up pretty freaking awesome. So the pre-sale will go for a couple weeks. We did sell a few of them in the spring training 2024 group. So we have a limit of how many of the pre-sales we're going to sell. But I am, get this thing. This thing's going to be awesome. You're basically getting our SOPs for schema. So you're going to get to be able to do this, not just for your own site, but for every other client site. You upcharge for this, so, I charge $1,500 on a brand new website with Elisabeth just to do schema on that site. So, you can upcharge this thing. You can, offer it as a different offering. You can do all kinds of stuff with it here. So if you have any questions at all about this, let me know. It will drop, I'm going to say the 1st of July. I might even invite some people early in to just kind of help me figure out the layout and the flow and all that stuff. And I'm only going to pick those people from people that bought a training course, bought a seat, so to speak. And then if I do pick you to help me, I'll refund you your thing and give you the course for free. But I am looking at 2 or 3 people to invite in early to help me just make sure the flow is good. What do I need to change? All that kind of good stuff. So if you know me and Elisabeth, or Elisabeth and I guess that's the right Grammarly thing I'm learning. I'm a perfectionist. I don't release something or do something that's not high level. So that's kind of my only thing about, pat myself on the back as far as, I have a passion in this, and it's not going to be your run everyday course that you're going to just kind of put on your back shelf. This is something that you can use over and over again. As we get updated tests, they'll be shared in the Facebook groups or Facebook group. And like I said, this is something that other people aren't doing this. They're relying on Yoast and Rank Math and all these other plugins out there and saying that they have schema and all this stuff. And we're here to show you, you might have schema, but you have the same schema that
everybody else has.
People have.
Yeah.
So let's show you a different way to do better. So if there's any questions at all about this course or even the on-page class, the on-page class is half full. I only allow 10 people in it at a time because I want that intimacy to go through the on-page class. And I'll tell you, the people that buy the on-page class is going to get my course for free this time. So I'm not doing that with any other class. So that's another bonus.
Check your Skype. I put the QR codes in there if you want them.
Oh, hold on. Got QR codes to show. Tech 100 is a coupon code for this course that Elisabeth just did for you guys. It'll give you an extra $100 off. And that will be good. Let's see. There's a QR code.
Click the link.
Can you guys see that QR code?
No, we still see the schema course, the SEO University.
Okay.
So
sorry.
the URL is seouniversity.net.
Yeah, hold on here. Is that? Oh, there we go. Okay.
You got it?
There we go. So there you go. You can, find out more about SEO University. I just had a popped up question. I just looked over on Facebook real quick. SEO University is not just for me. So I want other people to share their courses and classes through SEO University. So if you're interested in doing that, talk to us. This was originally designed years ago to just be a place that small businesses could go to learn SEO, but it's now kind of dwarfed into something a little bit bigger. So so SEO University is not just mine, Elisabeth. So it's open to other course creators, class teachers, stuff like that. If you want to do something, reach out. It's pretty cool. So.
Yeah, Brian, you need to get together a security course, how to secure your stuff. I know you know all the ins and outs of that. That would be nice. And that would be very valuable for people to learn too.
Exactly. I agree. So anyways, I think we're up on our hour. So again, I apologize for my technical issues with my camera. I'm going to try to get that figured out. But let us know. Reach out to Elizabeth and I if you have any questions. We'll put the replay up there and share it out there. You guys can look at it. How long is the QR code good for?
It's a couple of, the QR code is like all the time, all three of them. You know, spring training.
Coupon code, I meant.
The coupon code is just a couple of days, just to kind of see. Let's see if we get any traction. It's not a forever thing.
Okay, cool.
So.
Good deal. Well, thank you, everybody. We will be back every single Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Next week, join us. You're going to get to meet Team Samuels, Team Salterra, whichever way we're calling them this week. And then we're going to have some people come on with us as we go through this thing. This is going to be a weekly thing. We're super excited. We've been wanting to do this for a while. But if you have questions, if you want to see a topic, if you want to see a guest, reach out and we'll see if we can accommodate. So
yeah, send me questions that are not necessarily schema.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Anyways, thank you all so much for joining us, and I appreciate your time today.
Like, follow, share, all the things.
All the things.
Awesome. Bye.